Alrighty, guys, welcome to tonight's charting session. Hopefully, everybody's doing well. Happy Tuesday. So, heard a lot of you guys actually took no trades today. Some of you guys are green, some big green. I didn't see a lot of red, so that makes me happy. But I do want to go over the day. I did not trade today. Like I said, I was hibernating. I don't understand what happened. And then I had some calls later, so I kind of just decided to not really look at the market late because I didn't want to chase anything. So I kind of just took the day off to do some other stuff and work. But I do want to go over the setups because there actually was really clean PA today. And I do want to talk about this soup in the morning that was really nice that I saw a lot of you guys actually snipe, and I want to go over this. So going into the day, one thing I want you guys to recognize is going into the week, I wanted to see these equal lows get taken. But starting to reassess what we did yesterday, we came down, swept this internal low, right? We're taking some form of internal liquidity. From this point in time, I don't want to see us either rebound. Now, I want to see us rebalance price, but I don't want to see a reason for price to go higher. Once we come back, we accumulate. Monday was terrible PA, again, like we expect. Monday, no news, and we have pre-CPI, not a day to trade. Literally, this looks ass. And I tweeted... Now, again, one thing I want to cover too is I tweeted on Twitter, literally looking at this, saying, I hope you guys realize, days in which you shouldn't be trading. And I got a lot of responses being like, oh, I made $1,000. You don't know what you're talking about. It is so easy. And I sent this in my chat yesterday. It is so easy to go on Twitter and go on social media and see so many people that are either, like, let's say you have a red day or you have an opinion and you're confident in that opinion. You go on Twitter and you see other people saying the exact opposite or making money or losing money, whatever it is. It absolutely destroys your own conviction in whatever you're saying, and it is the worst fucking thing you could possibly do. I've gone to a point where you have to literally just not give a fuck what any other person says, because you have to have confidence in what you believe, what your strategy is, and what you're trading. Because again, I have the conviction knowing because I've made a shit ton of money from it. So if you're going to tell me that I'm wrong, I'm not going to fucking listen to you, which you haven't made any fucking money at all. Now, you have to get to a point in your trading where you have the confidence to not let anybody affect what you're thinking and what you're trading, because you have a strategy. You know what works for you. Once you solidify it, once you start to see you make money, once you start to have some consistency, whether it be, journaling, you're going to have losing trades, you're going to have winning trades. But when you know what your A+ setup looks like, when you are taking winning trades, you should not be affected by what other people are trading. Now, this is a community. A lot of you guys, we trade the same concepts. Some of you are trading more scalpy. Some of you are trading more bigger time frames. Only you know what works for you. And we talked about this with some members as well. But I want you guys to be able to recognize and understand that only you know what's best for you. Do not be swayed and do not be intrigued by other people that are making money doing different things, because that works for them. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. And what happens is you'll see something, you'll end up working really good on it, you'll start being consistent on it, and then you'll lose conviction on that because you're looking at how somebody else is trading, and then you try trading like that, not knowing actually how they trade. You're literally just looking at whatever their entry is. And then you lose conviction off of the already setup that you've been building and the conviction you've been building behind it. So continue to keep what you are looking at. Stop being focused on what other people are doing. Your own lane, your own path, your own speed. Take it and be dialed in on yourself. Don't care about what other people are doing. All it does is ruin your own conviction. All it does is FOMO you into other strategies and other types of opportunity. You know what you're looking for. So going into the day, I did want to be bearish, but going into the morning, there were signs in which I could expect to see higher prices. Number one, going into the morning, I kind of want to, let me clear up the chart here. I actually want to replay this entire day. So 8:30 CPI, 9:30 open here. 8:30 CPI opens. One thing I want to look at, internal liquidity swept. We've had displacement of the upside. We have a big imbalance to the left of us, but I do want to see the external draw still be lower because we still have these daily lows. So there's two different biases I'm looking at. Number one, the internal model tells us we want to go higher. The external model tells us we want to go lower. Now, this internal model in the relationship to these equal lows, there still can be a bullish setup here because this will become the external time frame if we zoom in, right? So to the left of us, we have a 15-minute imbalance. We also had a 1 hour. Notice all of the wicks did the damage today. All of the wicks did the damage. I will also include this too because this is a volume imbalance. All of the wicks doing the damage, continuing to hold, and then we end up continuing later to the upside. in the morning and the afternoon as well. So the biggest thing that I would be looking for going into the day is I'm going to say, okay, well, I'm recognizing where we are. Internal liquidity got swept. We've got displacement. There's definitely reason for a bullish bias. But what am I looking for the market to tell me if we want to go lower or we want to go higher? Well, I know that if this is a bullish model, this imbalance is going to hold bullish because we swept the low. We've had displacement through these equal highs here. If we're going to pull back, I know this imbalance is going to hold if we're bullish and we're going to go higher, right? Now, where can we expect to go higher? This recent high to the left of us. We can also go rebalance to this fair value gap up here, right? But this is really the main high that I'm kind of looking for here is this high, right? Now, if this imbalance gets ran through and we can continue to show bearish order flow and get back to these lows, then I can expect price to then want to work back down to these lows. But going into the morning, I'm going to be more bullish just because of this model here. So market ends up opening. CPI here, 830, 930 opens here. Looking at this point in time in price, what am I looking for? First I want to recognize the structure. I'm going to say, okay, we had all of these equal lows here that just got swept. We have a massive wick here. This to me is looking pretty bullish. We've had all of this internal liquidity being swept. All of these equal lows. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 relative equal lows here. This has been swept. We've rebalanced to the fair value gap. We've rebalanced back to OTE of this previous range as well. Right? So now I'm looking at this saying, okay, I'm going to wait for market to open because I want to see manipulation. Now, this was the manipulation here, but we're kind of starting to build some more structure here. So what am I going to mark out? Big wick here on the 5-minute. I'm going to mark out consequent encroachment because I know that's going to be the most sensitive point in time. If we do want to go lower, if we have this big wick here, I don't want to see us go back down to this low. We could, but what I'm mainly looking for is manipulation because I'm in an area in which we already expect to manipulate, right? On the bigger time frame. Why do we expect to manipulate here? Because this is the bigger time frame bullish model. We're in a 1 hour fair value gap. We've had displacement. When we pull back, we expect us to go higher. So when I'm on the smaller time frames, this is an area in which I expect to see manipulation. So I have consequent encroachment marked out, and I'm going to mark the low as sell side. And I'm looking in, and I'm going to let market open, and I want to recognize where the manipulation is going to be to eventually see if my bullish bias will play out. If we can come down, maybe form an SMT, see displacement, I'm going to expect higher prices. If we run through this and we continue to displace through these lows, I'm expecting lower prices, and I expect this to become a breaker on the bigger time frame. Market opens. We have an initial move up. We're generating buy-side liquidity. Equal highs now in the internal range. This is a point in time in which, okay, I can expect us to come back to these equal highs. We're generating liquidity. We end up selling off. We end up selling off through these lows. Biggest part is let's take a look at where ES was. ES, same thing. 1 hour fair value gap, order block here as well. Zooming into the 15-minute and the 5-minute. Mark out consequent encroachment. We end up selling off. NQ takes the low, ES does not. This is the form of manipulation that I'm looking for to validate a bullish bias. This becomes the turtle soup entry. Why is this turtle soup? Because it's internal range liquidity to external draw. Why is this considered internal? Because of this model. Liquidity swept, displacement. This becomes the internal low being taken before running towards the next draw on liquidity, which is going to be this recent high here. So once we come down, we take this low. We have an SMT. What am I looking for to take an entry? Two things, depending on how you are as a trader. You can immediately take a long here, have a 10-point stop loss, or have your stop at ES at the low, right? If you take it on ES, again, I would take it more on ES here because, again, ES is the bullish one of the two since we're making a higher low. Or you can wait for the displacement. So most of the time, I like waiting for the displacement, but I do not need to see a pullback to an inefficiency. If I'm trading turtle soup, all I need to see is an SMT. No, I don't. Okay, never mind. If I don't need to see an SMT, but if I do see an SMT, I can just enter. Now, if I'm confident with the turtle soup, I don't need an SMT. But if I do need an SMT, or if I see an SMT, I am slapping longs or I'm slapping shorts because there's no reason for price to go lower. So what I'll basically do here is if I'm looking at ES and I see, okay, NQ just took this low, I'm going to take a long and I'm going to put my stop at whatever the recent low is. So you can either take a long here, put your stop at the low, target first the internal high here and then the external high, or you can wait for the initial bounce and then take a long, which is normally what I'll do. So I'll wait for the SMT to hold, notice price starts to slow down. Doji, doji, doji. Displacement, I'll probably take this long here. And I'll put my stop at this recent low. And I'll let market go. So we have an SMT. We expect price to no longer go lower. Why? Because we're recognizing the manipulation in a point in time in which we already expect to see manipulation, right? Again, zoom out. All of the wicks are doing the damage here. This is a point in time in which we expect to see this hold. If this does not hold and we close below, again, price has to close below. The candle has to close below for this to be invalidated, right? The wicks are doing the damage. The candles are showing the narrative here. Nothing is invalidated by this move to the downside. And I bet a lot of you are probably faked out by this because you're focusing on, you're on a 5 minute when you're recognizing, hey, we're in a 1 hour imbalance. A 1 hour candle close has to be the thing that invalidates this imbalance and can say that we maybe want to go lower. But that wasn't the case. So morning move, sells off, takes sell side, SMT, perfect manipulation. This is the point in time where I would be looking for longs. Most of the time, I wouldn't be looking for a fair value gap. If you did look for a fair value gap, it's not wrong, but you probably missed out on the setup. Now, again, is that a bad thing? No. Should you start to recognize when and when not to look for a fair value gap to enter? Yes, because there will be times when you will miss out on a setup if you are looking for an imbalance, especially in a turtle soup type of entry. When we have an SMT, one thing I'll tell you guys to look for is the trades in which you will miss are the trades in which we do have an SMT, because an SMT shows manipulation, number one, a reaction of price to no longer go lower or higher and continue the trend, especially if we are in a place in which we expect to go higher. Why do you think price was so efficient at this point in time, right? Why do you think this was just pretty much a straight up move? Because we're having manipulation in an area in which we already expect to have a bullish expansion move. Why do we expect to have a bullish expansion move here? Because we've taken sell side, we've had displacement, we've pulled back to OTE, we expect to expand higher now, right? And there's a reason for price to expand. We have a recent high, we have an imbalance we haven't rebalanced to, and so on, right? So a lot of the times when you will see price action like this, which is very efficient, straight to the point, straight to the draw on liquidity, there will be an SMT, and we are in an area on the bigger time frame in which we already expect to reject, right? We talk about fractal price a lot of the time. The trades in which we want to take are trades like this, and the price action like this. We want to take advantage of price action like this. People can't recognize why, though, right? When people look at this and they say, Justin, how can you expect to see something like this? How do you know when price is going to look like this? Well, they'll see this and be like, oh, you know, we just got lucky with good price action. It's not luck. This is exactly what we already would expect to see because we're trading fractal conditions. If we have some form of sell side taken and we're looking at the bigger time frame model, we look for the exact same thing on the lower time frame. That is the whole reason of why we expect to see the market move efficiently. We're trying to trade efficient market conditions, and efficiency comes when there's no reason, there's manipulation, there's a reason for price to go higher, and we've overlapped the external draw with the internal draw. So when we get something like this, and let's say we're looking at this on a 15-minute or a 1 hour, right? There's no reason on the bigger time frame for price to go lower here. So what we do is we wait for the internal model, right? We already know we can expect, if this, again, if we're on a 15-minute, I can expect, hey, in the next 30 minutes to an hour, probably, we're probably going to have an expansion move at least to this high, right? So now my goal is to recognize when that specific time is. So I give myself a window here. I zoom in and I look for the internal model. What am I looking for? The exact same thing. Either some sort of turtle soup. Let's say this was the case here. Let's say there's a low here. Maybe we continue to generate liquidity on both the highs and the lows, and then we have a move like this. Let's say there's an SMT here, and then I trade the internal model, right? Which looks like this. Which would be the same thing. Some form of sell side taken, an SMT, in an area in which we already expect to reject, right? Which is the biggest, most important part of this, in an area in which we already expect to reject, which is what? The bigger time frame breaker, or the bigger time frame for value gap, OTE of the previous range, whatever. Wait for the displacement. If there's an SMT, slap along, put your stop at the recent low, and let it ride. And this is how you will get the most efficient PA and the best risk. Because again, you get the best risk when you are aligning the external model with the internal model, because there's a bigger reason for price to move higher, right? And it's in favor of the draw. Does that make sense? When was it too late to enter soups? Great question. So there was 2 entries in this model today. There's 2 entries. Can you guys tell me where the second one is? Because I think some of you guys took it today. Where was the second one? Technically, there was 3, but I don't like the second one. I like the third one better. I shared it with you. Send the screenshot again, Debo. Let me see. Yep, that's it, Swag. Right here. This is the second entry. Now, this could be an entry, but again, like we talked about, what do I, once we get above this range, remember the video that we were talking about, when it's, okay, what do I need to take a trade here? The difference between waiting for equilibrium versus taking an entry. What do I need to see? If I'm looking at this, I cannot take this entry. Why? Because it's not an equilibrium. Why can I take this entry? Because a recent low was taken. That is the only reason why I can take this entry, because once this recent low is taken and we've rebalanced, there's no reason for price to go higher. This becomes internal turtle soup. So this is a point in time in which you can possibly zoom in, say, hey, we're in a bigger time frame imbalance. What am I looking for here? I'm looking for a recent low to be swept or some sort of manipulation. I zoom in. Now, again, you can zoom in or you could just take the recent low being stopped. If you zoom into the 15 second, again, price is completely fractal. It's the exact same thing on every single time frame. What is happening here? Internal sell side getting swept. Rejection of a bigger time frame imbalance. What are we doing to the left of us? Generating all of this buy side liquidity. Displacement of the upside, pull back to an inefficiency, and we run price. Literally, if this was on a 15-minute, it would be the clearest thing you've ever seen in live, right? So it's the same things constantly. And it's aligning the external draw with the internal draw. And again, this is a model inside of a model inside of a model. All with the same bias. Never gets celebrated. Saw it, but hesitated, didn't take. But glad I read it, acknowledge it, just didn't execute. All good. This was minus 0.4% my trade for the day. I saw everything you mentioned. However, I think my biggest problem here was not waiting for price to show a bounce back since I bought straight at the sweep. I also sensed my SL was too tight. Where would you have placed it? And do you have any other feedback? I appreciate your outlook on this one. Great question. So, yes, your stop is way too tight on this. What I will say is the best way, if you are going to take a turtle soup, or if you're taking this SMT, again, because you took this because you saw the SMT, right? The reason you took this, number one, if you're taking it on whatever the correlating asset that took the low, it's not a clear understanding of where you should put your low, where you should put your stop, because there's nothing to the left of you. It's a lot easier to set a stop loss if you're taking it on ES, because this is completely valid until this low gets taken, right? So you immediately know where your stop needs to be in place here, even though you're trading the same model. So it's a lot better to take a setup on ES here than NQ, because your defined risk is already in place. You know that this invalidates the setup. On NQ, you have no idea when that is, because we could dig a couple points deeper. We could, dig a little bit. So if you are going to take this setup, wait for the initial move higher and then put your stop at the recent low. Make sense? Drew SD like this, use it to enter long at the very bottom. Is this correct, SD, or did I just get lucky? Yeah, looks fine. How you so good at teaching? I couldn't tell you. I guess I just know what I'm saying. I guess I know what I'm talking about. I'm not making up things like a lot of other people. Anyway, this is a trade I missed today. Can you see anything I could improve on here? I didn't take this because I wasn't confident with not seeing both internal lows being taken for a clean soup. And I was waiting for the 15-minute fair value gap to be tapped with displacement out of the soup to long for a displacement fair value gap. I didn't see exactly what I wanted to, or what I wanted, so I didn't take, but only sweeping one internal low here from displacement still soup. And can you see anything I can improve on here relating to the setup that I was looking for and I recognized but didn't take? Do you think I was being too picky? Yeah, I think that looks great. I think it looks like a great entry. Again, we're going to get into this too. So this is some other trades later in the day, which we'll now get into as well. Actually, let me ask some more questions though. Would you say these two trades here were high quality? I personally had a ton of conviction taking these. Yeah, I kind of want to see where price was at this point, but I think it doesn't look too bad. I like it. Thoughts on this trade I took yesterday? I finally closed it when I saw a protected high being taken. Do you think it is a good setup? And only given the conditions of a no news Monday did it not work. I also wanted to ask if the swing low in the SD zone 2 to 2.5 was a good point to scale something and put the stop at break even. Yes, I think this is fine. But again, it's a fucking no news Monday the day before CPI. Like every single time that we have a no news Monday, it continues to remind you why you should not trade them. And again, you will see people being like, "Oh, well, I made fucking $2,000 today." Brother, I'm so happy for you, honestly. Like, I'm actually, the fact that you made $2,000 a day, like, good for you. Again, your strategy and my strategy are not the fucking same. We trade completely differently. I don't give a fuck that you made $2,000 on today because that's not going to affect how I traded. Good for you, buddy. You want a cookie? Like, stop caring about what other people are doing. This is a day in which you should not trade, in my opinion. Like, you really fucking shouldn't. And not only because of the conditions, but this is going to make you are so much more likely to make mistakes on a day like this. Like, I guarantee you, how many of you traded yesterday and overtraded? And how often do you normally overtrade? Because I guarantee you, many of you probably overtraded this because you're expecting to see something just to get fucking stopped back and forth, chopped up because the market's inefficient. You're not recognizing conditions and you're thinking the market's going to eventually do something. And it never does. So stay away from this. You're way more likely to get chopped up and take fucking 5 trades on a day like this and dig a hole for yourself instead of just waiting for good market conditions and just stepping away. Thoughts on the trade I took earlier? Swept buy side, waited for displacement, entered for value gap on equilibrium. Again, looks great. Same trade as the other guy as well. Thoughts on this? Took this trade today when price came back to the 15-minute unicorn. I was waiting to see reaction, and when I seen price begin to respect it with displacement, I scaled down into the 5 in the 1 minute time frame, and for an entry, I entered half size off the soup and entered full size when we came back into that for value gap. Left 1 minute chart, right 5 minute chart. Yep, again, beautiful. I love this trade. Again, let's go over this. So another trade today. So at this point in time, right? Let's take a look at price here. So at this point in time, once this high gets taken, let's clear up all these annotations. There was some more opportunity today. So we get a lot of displacement to the upside. We do have a breaker. And we do have a fair value gap. This is a high quality or a high conviction point of interest in where we expect price to reject. Where can we expect the price to reject even more? Well, let's zoom in even more. 15-minute fair value gap. What's inside that 15-minute fair value gap? A 5-minute fair value gap. Let's draw this in. This is probably a more accurate point in time at which we're going to reject. Setups up here. We expect price to most likely rebalance into this. Now, we have rebalanced into this inefficiency, but we expect price to go back to the breaker. So, possible shorts up here. I do want to look at ES. I want to see where this SMT was. SMT was a little bit more zoomed in than I would want it to be. But we did have an SMT here. I would have liked the SMT to be here, but this is still okay. I think this short entry is just a little early. It's not my kind of trade. I don't have the conviction to take this. I don't have the conviction to take this setup. I do have more of a conviction to take this sort of setup, though, because we've had more displacement to the downside. So I like a short here a lot better than I do here. We finally rebalance price. What am I looking for? Okay, I expect price to most likely hold here. Why? Breaker, fair value gap, unicorn. We're back in equilibrium of this range. Actually, did we even go back to equilibrium of this range? We might have not have, but we don't really need to because we have the breaker. Yeah, I don't think we did. Yeah, we didn't. So again, what am I looking for to take an entry here, though? Let me zoom back at this out a little bit. So again, to the left of us, what are we consistently doing here? ES did? Okay, never mind. We're good then. Did we have an SMT at these lows? We did not. What am I looking for? I'm looking through displacement through a swing high. All of this generated buy side to the left of us. Again, beautiful price action. High, lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high, until finally breaking structure. Again, there's no setup earlier here. Why is there no setup earlier? Because there's no displacement through some sort of swing high. This is the first time in price in which we get displacement, and it also becomes a breaker. We get displacement. What am I looking for an entry? Some sort of pullback to fair value gap or some sort of stop rate. So again, move to the upside. What am I looking for to take an entry? Either a pullback to discount or some sort of low. So what am I looking for here? We're building structure. This becomes my turtle soup entry. I'm looking for price to go here to buy the stops. I still can't take a trade here. I still can't take a trade. Now, this is where it gets tricky. SMT here. Propulsion block here. This is where you can take an entry. This becomes the soup. The internal low was taken. We do have an SMT. It wasn't super clear, though. It wasn't super clean. If you don't know what you're looking for here, I would have been looking for this. But if I saw this right after, so this is basically my thought process here. Let me pull this back. So I'm originally looking at this, right? I'm looking for this low because this low makes more sense. I want to see us pull back to this breaker as well. But I also want to look for the reaction here. We come down, take this recent low. I looked at ES, I say, okay, we do have an SMT here. If we run through this fair value gap here, there's no reason for price to go back lower. So we run this with a lot of displacement. I'm going to take this. I'm going to take this as my entry. And I'm going to put my stop at the recent low. And what my thought process is here is I'll take an entry, put my stop down here. If we do end up coming back down to this, this will be my second entry, right? So I give myself 2 entries. This is my thought process. I'll take this entry. If, let's say this is not the soup, let's say we come back down and actually take this, this will be my second entry. If that fails, I can't take the model, right? So this is the first point in time in which I'm like, okay, price does not need to go lower. I'll take this entry. If this fails, I'll take this entry as this low being taken. If that fails, I'm not taking it, right? Because I give myself two entries per model. So stop. If I get stopped again, I can't take it until the objective is taken. I'm done trading. But this would be the first entry, and this ends up running. And that would be the only really other setup today, in my opinion. Besides initial longs here, turtle soup long here. This short, this for me is a little bit early, but this is not bad either. And then this long. Trade I took today, is this legit unicorn? Took a long off the 5-minute fair value gap close to equilibrium. It's not bad. It's a little, again, if you're taking a trade based off of your initial bias being this breaker, your stop cannot be this tight. If you are taking an entry like this, you have to be trading the internal model, right? If your stop is this tight, it has to be based off of the internal model. Because again, if you're taking an entry here, what's telling you from price to not go lower than this? Because we can easily wick through this and then continue to hold this, right? There hasn't been any displacement. We could easily go a couple points lower and then have that move higher. So if you are just taking it off of this fair value gap and off of the breaker on the bigger time frame, right? This breaker, your stop can't be that tight. And let me pull this up so people can see. These equal lows made me cautious, maybe miss the move. Why not going back to 1 minute equal lows? These equal lows. Which equal lows? Oh, these equal lows? Again, this displacement, especially this move. This move right here, there's no reason for price. We displace so much in this range. This should tell you we're extremely bullish. We don't need to go here. It's just a little bit too zoomed in. Is this your first or second crypto bull run? If it's the second, what would you say to your younger self? Why would you advise against doing? This is my first, so I never traded the first bull run. Thoughts on the second trade? I was targeting 50% after holding negative 2 to 2.5. Scales at the low, added back on the pullback into the 5-minute fair value gap blue rectangle. Was this a valid scale and add? Yes, I do. Yes. Yep, looks good, brother. Is it wrong to only have conviction trading soup with displacement? I never take the initial entry. I only have confidence if I see a setup. If I see a pullback to an imbalance from the soup, is that wrong, or is it something I should build confidence with? I recommend building confidence with it. Yeah, definitely build confidence with it. Yeah, so let's take a look and what we're looking at going into the rest of the week here. So let's clear up the charts. We'll talk a little bit about my bias going into tomorrow. So from where we are right now, we're at a point in time in which we can really do a lot of things. What I will say is this. We still have these equal lows here. This will be taken eventually. Figuring out when. This high has been taken. We have displaced. This could be pulling back to equilibrium or an OTE of the range to then continue the price lower. That is what I would really like to see. We have a breaker to the left of us. We have a massive fair value gap. If we start to sell off in the overnight session, and we really sell off in the overnight session, we need to build more structure here because this is the first low. This is what I would expect to see from price. For me to be like really bearish and me expect to go down to these lows, this is what I would expect in price. Right? There has to be more reason. And the reason is because this initial move lower and then this initial, there's no structure here. This is just the first initial low being made. There hasn't been any form of manipulation that's clear enough here. I want to see another low being put in, possibly another one, and then some form of high being taken and a lack of displacement to the upside. Right now, it's a little bit too early to decide whether our buy should be that or not, because we could easily run back higher and leave all of this low, all these equal lows, and leave them to come back later. So I want to be focused more on the internal time frame and watch to see what happens in this area in price, because we do have a breaker, we do have a fair value gap. I want to see what price action we're going to build in this before having whatever we have an expansion to the upside or expansion to the downside, and from there we can really form our bias. But again, wait for a market to show you. We know we're at a point in time in which we can project, but we also know that we could easily run through this, right? Because this internal low was taken, and we're having a lot of bullish order flow. So wait for the market to pick one of the two. Wait for the structure to validate one of the two. Wait for equal lows to be put in, or sorry, not equal lows, but wait for more structure to be put in and then displacement to the downside, right? Wait for it to be dumb clear. Right now, we have no idea whether we want to reject this or not. Yeah, also, taking a look at ES. ES is extremely bullish. But what can we expect? Look at the price action right now. What can we expect to see? Just by looking at this in the future, what can we expect to see? Not an SMT. Not an SMT. Look at something else. Look at something else. What can we expect to see here? There you go. Market maker sell model. Why can we expect to see a market maker sell model in the future? Because this looks way too clean. Low put in. Low put in. Low put in. Absolutely no lows on ES are being taken to go higher. We're leaving all of this. We are generating sell-side liquidity. Again, what are the 4 things we're constantly doing? Rebalancing the inefficiencies, hunting liquidity, rebalancing equilibrium, and generating liquidity. We are generating liquidity on our way up to eventually build more structure, have manipulation, and then run all of this to the downside. So ES at this point in time, we absolutely could have an SMT at these highs. In my opinion, the market conditions in which we are at right now is way too slow to really base a bias off of that, especially with this 4 hour, especially with the daily. I mean, the daily is so nothing that it's hard to base and have confidence based off of an SMT just off that highs, because we just make new highs, rebalance, make new highs, rebalance, make new highs, rebalance, make new highs, rebalance. There's no volatile action on the bigger time frame to really give us a solid foundation of a bias. So this is showing me we are lacking steam. We are slowing down it's a lack of price efficiency to go higher. This tells me, again, that's why I have the sell side marked here, is I'm expecting to see a move lower in the coming month because of where we are in price, because of how this price action is looking. So ES is continuing to build all this generated sell side. I do want to expect to see some sort of clear manipulation, some sort of clear displacement to then expect us to go lower. But right now, it's not the time. So I wouldn't fight the trend right now. I would continue to be bullish until there's a reason for price to go lower. Yeah, exactly. I would want to see a weekly power of 3 here. Because again, we could continue to sit in this fucking range. Like, let's be honest here. We could easily do something like this. Easily do something like this. And then what does this become on the bigger time frame? And this is what I would expect to see in price. This is my prediction for until fucking April. Some sort of accumulation. We're going to sit in this range. We'll have another manipulation move, and we'll start to run all of the generated sell side that we've been building. And this becomes a bigger time frame power of 3. But this is what I would want to see. Somebody save this screenshot for me, and we'll revisit this. But yeah, that's just a prediction. We'll see. But again, we could easily chop in this range because there's no external low being taken. I mean, this internal low being taken here is the only really bias that we can have, right? And again, also the validation of, hey, we've been following bullish order flow in a buy model. So, in fact, good reminder for myself, there is not yet a volume imbalance video in the class, so I need to write that down and make. Why you blinking your eyes like that? Taking mental pics and storing for later. What are the best places to add to my position? What do you mean, like pyramiding? Turtle soup. Can you explain propulsion block? Propulsion block is basically an order block based off of... So, in price, when we're looking at like this is a propulsion block. It's basically a breaker that doesn't get broken through. That's pretty much what it is. Like, again, normally what we would expect is up close, down close candle. If this gets broken through, this becomes a breaker. If it doesn't, this holds as a propulsion block. So again, like that example I said, where was the propulsion block today? Where did I mark it? There was some propulsion block today. I don't remember where it was, but... Was it on a lower time frame? I don't remember where it was. But... Oh, yeah, it was on the 15-second. That's where it was. It was... It was on the... No, it was on the 1 minute. It was right here. And again, propulsion block mixed with an SMT is the best thing possible, right? Either an SMT here is what the best case scenario would be. Or since we did create a little internal low as well, this is also. Can you check DXY? Yeah, let's take a look at DXY as well. So again, bias for DXY actually ended up playing out beautifully. Like I said earlier in the charting session on Sunday, I think we looked extremely bearish. We finally took the first target, which was this low. I expect, honestly, price to most likely go lower. If this does get ran through, one thing I want to keep in mind as well is looking at the bigger time frame, like the weekly. Yeah, in my opinion, I think this looks really, really bearish, and I would want to see price go lower. This to me looks like power of 3. So I want to see price continue to go lower. And I think the daily lines up with that as well. Rebalance of the fair value gap, swept these highs, displacement. I'd want to start to see these imbalances being respected, which is, again, is continuing to be bullish for NQ. Could you give some pointers onto how to position yourself on our initial soup entry? Where would your stop go? Yeah, so if I'm taking a soup and there's no SMT, then I'm putting it on whatever the reason I'm entering that soup is. So if there's most of the time, if I'm trading a soup, I would say 95% of the time there's an imbalance there, and I'll put my stop at whatever the imbalance low or high is. But you'll notice 95% of the time when there is a soup, we're not only rejecting because we're taking the internal liquidity, but we're bouncing off of some sort of fair value gap to the left of us. Yes, the Discord is currently closed right now. All right, any last questions for me, guys? Do you pay attention to regular trading hours? What do you mean? I only pay attention to New York session. I mean, not pay. I only trade New York session. Of course, I'm paying attention to everything else, but is there ever a turtle soup without a fair value gap, or is that needed to even be a turtle soup? It's not needed, but it happens, but rarely, in my opinion. I think most of the time that I've seen turtle soup, it happens because we're, again, in an area in which we already expect to reject. And what is a form of turtle soup? A form of manipulation. And we're bouncing off of an area in which we already expect to reject, right? I'll set multiple alarms for sure. All right, guys. Enjoy the rest of your night. Great session tonight. Glad to be back. Super excited for the rest of the week. Get some rest, and I will see you all tomorrow morning. Peace out, guys.